Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you guys are all doing really well. Now, if you're new to my channel, then welcome. I do a lot of study, career, and personal finance related videos here on my channel. So if that's something of interest to you, then please do subscribe to my channel down below and be sure to follow me on my Instagram as well. I'll leave it up here for you guys. Again, a lot of the same content on there as well. So as you can tell by the title of today's video, it is a story time video. I have never done one of these on my channel before. I just don't know why I haven't done one. It's just never sort of crossed my mind until recently and until now. So the reason I wanted to sort of, share my story with you and tell you a time where I was sexually harassed at work. So just in light of, recent events occurring around the world, it was just recently International Women's Day last week. And then obviously the case with Sarah Everard, and then also the Australian protests as well around, sexual violence and, female inequality. So I thought this was like a perfect time for me to sit down and just share my story with you and share a story that was actually from almost 5 years ago. I feel like there are a lot of women out there, or a lot of men out there as well, who have experienced harassment in the workplace or is experiencing it now and doesn't know what to do in terms of looking for help or seeking help. And I think it's also difficult to be able to identify these types of scenarios, and where do you sort of draw the line, whether you think it's serious or it's not serious at all. How do you identify situations like this? Also, given the type of content that I do talk about on my channel, it is obviously all workplace related. I've talked about the glamorous side of the workplace and also the not so glamorous part of it as well, and I feel like this is something that I should have done sooner rather than later, but I'm glad I'm doing it now. But I really want to share this with you. And obviously I'm such a big advocate for speaking up in the workplace, knowing your rights, knowing what is right for you, and knowing when to speak up, tell someone, and when this all becomes an issue. So I just hope I can help someone by sharing this story. So this story is from when I freshly entered the corporate world, and it's basically when you're new, you don't know what's right and what's wrong, and you don't know where the boundaries are. So I feel like this is going to help a lot of people out there. Also, just want to mention that I will not be mentioning any names or any organizations, just because the matter has already been resolved and I don't have any sort of animosity towards anyone, and I was quite happy with how things were dealt. Now, as I mentioned, this happened in between the periods of July 2016 till about January 2017. So within that sort of 6-month period. And the reason I've never sort of really been comfortable about talking about this, it's been 5 years, is that just coming from the background that I'm from, that Indian background, Asian background, it's not common for girls like me to speak out about this sort of stuff, just because they're made to sort of feel like it's not the right thing, and you shouldn't speak up about these things, and you don't want to be talking about anything related to harassment or anything like that. And that's why a lot of people from Asian countries, or my background as well, don't really publicly come out and talk about these things, just because they're worried about what other people might say, and that it's not a good look, and you don't want to sort of portray yourself. It might affect your career later down the track. So a lot of people are silenced. I'm not going to say I was silenced, I just wasn't ready to talk about it. And I can say that yes, I wasn't comfortable, just given my background as well. But I am ready today. I've got a platform now where I feel so comfortable, and I feel like I should use my platform to be able to let you guys know as to what has happened. And also, just quickly before we do jump in, I just want to mention that I did put up a post on my Instagram as well, where I shared a poll whether you guys did want to see this video, and oh my god, I was inundated with messages. A lot of you asking me to share my story, want to see how I sort of resolved or overcame this situation, and I was just so surprised that a lot of you women out there have experienced this, and it's very sad to see that that's what's happening in this day and age. But I hope that we can all sort of speak out and really raise awareness around this. So other than that, just stay tuned until the end, because I'm going to let you know what happened after I spoke up about this issue and I reported it. So get yourself comfortable, get maybe a cup of tea, and let's just begin. So starting off, now this is obviously one of my previous workplaces. I was hired for a job to do something, obviously. And for that job, there's a requirement to have 6 weeks of classroom training. And that is obviously training to, understand what the job is, understand the systems, and how to, just successfully complete your job. Now, in this group of training, there were only 4 of us, 2 girls and 2 boys. So obviously myself, I was 21 years old at the time, and I did have a colleague. I think she was maybe 18 or 19 years old. And then the other guys, I think they were 23 and 30 years old. So that was our, training group, very sort of intimate, small, and we had obviously all applied for the same position and got the same position, hence we were having this training. So went for my first day of classroom training. This was for 6 weeks, and first week, honestly, fine. We were in a classroom, obviously, and we were learning just about, the company values, learning about, what the job actually entails, history about this organization, and it was fine. Everyone was sort of, getting along well, and we were all getting to know each other because we were obviously going to be with each other for, 6 weeks. So it was good banter here and there. And then it was the second week, and in the second week, I started noticing some changes with the facilitator. So there was only one single male facilitator who was training us up, and we were going to be with him for the next 6 weeks. So obviously then moving forward in the second, third, fourth week, I started picking up some signals, which I have written down here. I do have my notepad, or my laptop, sorry, in front of me, just because I've got some notes and I do want this to be structured in some way. So I'll be talking through some of the signals that I started receiving, or some like red flags that I picked up from along the way. So in that 2 to 4 week period, the first signal that I picked up was compliments. I started receiving a lot of compliments from the facilitator. He was being very nice to me, very, very friendly, and would compliment me on a lot of things. He would say things like, you're beautiful, you have a beautiful smile, and, if you were the face of this organization or this company, you would definitely bring a lot of revenue in. And I was like, okay, like that's really nice. Like, that's a compliment. So initially when he said the first compliment, you're beautiful. I mean, look, people say that, it's not a big deal, but the fact that he was like saying these compliments a lot of the times, and he was sort of, repeating himself, I thought that this was a little weird, and he was just being too nice to me. And that was my first signal, like those compliments. Yeah, I definitely noted that down, and it was something that I wanted to sort of keep on the back of my mind and just be a little bit cautious about, because yeah, who gives compliments like on the daily to someone? Like, it's just not heard of, right? I mean, obviously to your friends and family you do, but for someone that I don't actually personally know, this was a little bit weird for me. Now, not only this, but during our classroom training, obviously with my other female colleague, I think she was 18 or 19, I can't remember, but she was obviously younger than me, a few years younger than me, and she was a girl that was a little bit curvy, and the facilitator actually asked her how she had gotten her body and whether it was real or natural. I can't remember the words, but like asking if her body was natural. Like, he's obviously analyzed her and assessed her and has sort of come up with this conclusion that she's curvy and her body might not be natural. But how can one just, sort of ask someone that? I just feel like is very, very inappropriate, and it's not something that you would sort of expect from your facilitator. Like, you're respecting this person, and for them to sort of look at you in that light is just very uncomfortable, very awkward, and you would just think so differently, towards that person. So obviously my colleague and I, we discussed that at lunchtime, and we were like, what the hell just went on, like, in that session before lunch. And we were just so uncomfortable with the fact that he was saying this about her. And I obviously told her as well about the stuff that he had been saying to me, all those compliments. And we were like, something is definitely fishy. Like, this does not sound right. She didn't think too much of it at the time, but I was like, I'm just gonna, pay attention to this and sort of see where this goes, because I'm just not going to let that, slide if someone's doing that to me. So moving on to the second signal that I sort of started picking up in that 2 to 4 week period as well, was that he was staring at me a lot. And not only just staring at me, but smirking and smiling and just giving me a very sort of, very seductive look, I want to say. But it was just so uncomfortable, guys. Like that look that I had, I can still picture it in my head. It was just so uncomfortable. And I, try not to reciprocate it. Back then I was such a shy, naive, quiet person, and for someone to do that to me, I just didn't know how to react. But I think it was good. Like I wasn't giving too much away as well. I did sort of want to keep my distance and not do anything that would maybe trigger this feeling in him, and I didn't really do anything to invite this sort of behavior. Obviously, classroom training was going ahead. By this time I had realized that something wasn't right. I just felt uncomfortable. I didn't like attention from any male or anyone for that matter, because I was such a quiet, shy girl, and I didn't really like the attention on me. I wasn't the center of attention. And then obviously as we go through classroom training, we're getting our work done, we're learning new things, I'm asking questions, I'm talking, statements are being said here and there, and every time I would just ask him something or say something about our work, he would almost just get everyone to be quiet and make me feel like I was saying something important and I was important. I don't know if I'm overthinking this one, but I feel like once you're in that, you sort of understand that this guy is going a little bit above and beyond to give you some respect, kind of, and just make you feel like you're up here, kind of. And I was like, you don't need to, it's not a question, it's not anything, I'm just talking about the work. But he got everyone to be quiet. And I mean, look, this wouldn't be weird if someone else did it, but the fact that he already had these 2-3 signals that I had picked up before, it was just a little bit, weird, and something that I was a bit conscious of when he did get everyone to become quiet. And when I did say what I wanted to say, it was like, they didn't even have to listen. It was something that was so little that didn't really impact anyone's work. It was just like a little question, and he made everyone become quiet for it. And after I asked it, they were like, oh, okay, well, now can we get back to work, kind of thing. So I feel like he just did that to me to make me feel appreciated, like, he was listening to me, kind of thing. But I don't know, I may be overthinking it, I don't know. But in the moment, I know that I felt a bit weird because it wasn't something that needed a lot of attention. Okay, now moving on to maybe the 4th or 5th week of our training, things started getting a little bit more uncomfortable for me. This was something that was definitely a red flag for me, and that was touching and invading my personal space. So basically what had happened was there was a day, at that classroom training where I was just a little down. I think I had a headache or maybe some personal issues that I was just going through, and he could tell that I was a little sad or whatever it was. And basically what he did was that he approached me and he gave me a hug and he kissed me on my forehead. And that for me honestly was a bit of a deal breaker, because I mean, I've been sad before at work and no one's just, come up to me and just hugged me or kissed me on my forehead to make me feel better. Like, that's actually inappropriate. From someone that I don't actually know personally, I would not expect them to come and hug me and kiss me on my forehead if I'm feeling a little sad. Like, honestly, kind of mind your own business kind of thing. And that was really weird for me. And I told my friend about it, obviously the other colleague that was with me. And she was like, yeah, no, that's not okay, because they didn't see that happening because they were somewhere else, and I had, come back from maybe the bathroom, so I saw him along the way and I was just a bit sad or whatever. So he approached me and was just there to hug me and gave me a kiss on the forehead. And oh my God, I literally still remember it till this day. It was the most weirdest experience ever, from someone that I don't know and from someone that I've been starting to get really weird signals from, and someone that's a little bit of a creep, to be honest. Yeah, I was just like, that's obviously definitely alarming for me. Anyways, moving on, I then had another signal. So I think we're up to maybe the 5th signal now. And that is asking about my personal life. So he sort of had an interest about, what I did outside of work. So I mentioned, because at the time I was dancing, I was doing competitive Indian dancing, and I obviously talked about that. And I mean, that was fine. Like, everyone sort of knew that I did dancing. So for me to mention that, I felt like it was fine. But not only that, he actually asked me, and this is what really, really just sort of made it a bigger deal than it actually was that He asked me if I was in a relationship and whether I had a boyfriend. And that, I feel like, from someone that's already built up a reputation to be a bit of a weirdo, is not something that I would expect. Like, why do you want to know about all of these things? And you've been acting a certain way towards me. Like, what do you think I would say? Like, I would say yes, because I don't want you to think that, you know, I'm single and, you know, that I'm available, because I do not want that. So at that time, I remember saying yes, that I do. And then he said, you know, oh, your boyfriend will be very lucky to have you. And I was like, okay, like, you know, this is just getting a little bit out of hand now. And like, who says that sort of stuff? And given the history that, you know, the background that he's got so far with me, yeah, it was just really uncalled for. And I didn't really appreciate some of the stuff he said. At the time, I didn't say anything because at the time I was very new to the corporate world. I had graduated from uni. Actually, no, I think I was still at uni. Yep, I was still at uni. And I just was very naive, as I said, and I didn't know what was right, what was wrong, and I felt like he was a facilitator. He obviously knew what was right, what was wrong, and I had to be good to him because he was going to report on our performance and our training and our grades for all the tests that we had done, and he would be the final tick of approval as to whether we are fit for the job or not. So, you know, I thought what he did was, you know, him doing his job, and I didn't think too much of it to question or ask him straight away. I think I still knew that, you know, in the back of my mind that he was doing something wrong, but, you know, I was like, okay, like, that's okay, I'm going to move on from this. But I did keep it a note. Like, it's not like I forgot about it. I was definitely very, very cautious around him, you know, next time I did see him. Okay, now moving on to the sixth flag now. And this one, again, was another deal breaker. I feel like every time I started picking up a flag, I just started noticing that something wasn't right, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And he went out of his way to add me on Facebook. I mean, we have no mutual friends. We're from completely different backgrounds as well. It's not like, you know, he was also Indian, completely different background, and we would not have any way to be mutuals or have any mutual friends. So you would have to actually physically type me up and, you know, add me. And that's what he did. He added me on Facebook, and that was a bit weird for me because he didn't add anyone else from the team on his Facebook, because then I asked them obviously the next day if they received a friend request, and they didn't. So that was just, you know, another signal for me, another sort of red flag that I had to keep in mind, that, you know, he had added me and no one else from the team. And then he started liking my 21st photo album, and it was just weird because my photos had been released in, I think, March or April, and he had liked them obviously 6 months later. So he would have had to, you know, physically stalk my page. But he went back to like the older photos as well, and he started liking my photos. And I was like, this is really weird. Like, you've got a lot of time on your hands to be liking my photos, you know, after work, and going down my profile and, you know, seeing my older photos as well, which I thought was really interesting and definitely very creepy. Not only that, he then started to Facebook message me as well. Facebook messaged me asking me about, you know, how my day went, how you finding the work, and then obviously asking about my personal life as well, if I did dance practice that day, asking about my heritage as well. I don't know why, but he was very interested in knowing about, you know, my background, Indian customs, things like that. And then obviously I thought that, you know, his intentions here are not looking like they're good. I mean, if he hadn't done any of the creepy stuff before, I wouldn't have had to think twice about, you know, him adding me. Maybe we've developed a friendship, I don't know, but I wasn't talking to him more at work than anyone else was. In fact, in this point, I had started talking to him less because I didn't want him to think that I was interested in any way, and I would not even like give him eye contact. I would not associate myself with the team if they were around him. I would literally step away, just go to the bathroom. So there was no reason for me to think that, you know, I was sort of bringing this on or attracting this sort of behavior, because I honestly wasn't. And I mean, look, I knew no better as well. Like, he was messaging me on Facebook asking me about my day, and I was like, I didn't know any better, and I didn't really think too much about it, I think, at the time. And I obviously responded. I didn't want to just like scene zone him, because obviously I had to go work the next day as well, and I don't want to have, you know, left a bad impression, because I needed the job. Like, I had quit my other job and I needed this job. So I, you know, obviously responded to his messages, but I didn't actually ask him any questions. So I was just responding to his questions, and it wasn't like, I was constantly there. It was me more so, if I see a message, I'll respond, because then if I don't respond, he'll ask me, why didn't you respond at work? Okay, now we're in our final week of training. So this is week 6 of our classroom training, and I started getting really frustrated because his actions were very, very not appropriate, and I feel like this was definitely harassment. Well, it was harassment before, but I felt like this was just something else, because he was then, touching my shoulder every time I would ask a question or say something. He would just come over, put his hand on my shoulder, and it would be very close to me as well, and that I found very, very uncomfortable. So I, obviously tried to step away a little bit as well, just to let him know that I wasn't okay with, his face being like right here. There's no need for your face to be right here when, we can have a conversation. Like, obviously if COVID was around, then obviously we wouldn't have this problem. I was getting obviously very uncomfortable at this point. In fact, I was frustrated. I was a bit angry. We had to do training. So when we started sort of, taking some calls, some scenario calls, he would sit very close to me as well, and I would have to just keep pushing my chair away from him for him to realize. Towards our last week of training, we took a group photo. His hand was around my waist. I just feel like I would not do that with any of my work colleagues if I don't know them too well, right? And he's like that facilitator where the students sort of that relationship, it's just not on, I feel. Now, what was interesting was that he actually never spoke about his personal life. None of us knew anything about, whether he had a family, kids, what he did outside of work. None of us knew, and none of us, I think, bothered to ask as well. It was until, he had messaged me on Facebook. I was like, I'm going to look at his profile and see, what is it that he does? And mind you, he had a wife, he was married, and he had a kid as well. And I was just like, this is so gross, and this is so inappropriate for you to be doing these sorts of things when you are married. That was something that was definitely not on. And then obviously we came towards the end of classroom training, and he was like, look guys, we should celebrate. We should all go out for drinks, and maybe Sanjna, you can dance for us, because you do Bollywood dancing. You can have a few drinks, you can dance with us. You do drink, right? And I was like, yeah, I do. But he was just making sure, I don't know, you're going to get drunk, you're going to start dancing for me kind of thing. And I was like, no, I'm not going to dance in public. He's like, oh, come on, it'll be all right. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. And yeah, I think that end of training session or end of training drinks never actually happened. I can't remember for what reason, but that actually didn't end up going ahead. And that was the end of training. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. So now we had finished our training, everything was done. Obviously, we didn't hang out as a team for whatever reason. I think we all said we were busy. So I was in my job now. So training was over. We were fully in our jobs. We were doing our work, and I had noticed a message from him on my Facebook, obviously not at work, but he had said, oh, do you want to hang out for coffee, or do you want to get lunch, I think it was. I'm trying to go back through the messages on my phone, but I had actually deleted it because I was so scared, and I had blocked him as well after my training. So I can't find those messages, and I think I had just deleted them, which I wish I hadn't, which is so annoying. And this is what really was a turning point for me. We had finished our training, we had no more sort of reason to connect or continue talking. So I then obviously made it a point to talk to a colleague of mine. She was actually like my manager, but she was very approachable, very friendly, and I felt like I could talk to her about this situation and what was actually happening. So I told her everything about what had happened, and funnily enough, if that's even a word, she said that, oh yeah, I'm aware of this, because a few females have actually raised this before as well. And I was like, you're kidding me. This has been raised before, but nothing's been done about it. She's like, yeah, it was raised with her, or it was just said in conversation that this has been happening, but they didn't go ahead and speak to anyone else about the situation. And I was like, wow. So the fact that this had happened to someone else was just like insane, because this is what really sort of egged me on to speak to someone else about it, because, you know, he could have done this to any other girl, and I feel like we have to put a stop to this. So this is what egged me on, and I was really frustrated by it. So this is when it got really uncomfortable, because obviously I was doing my work and I was a employee now, and I could still see that he was a facilitator. He was still training other teams up, and we would, you know, still see his face here and there in the office. And I just felt very uncomfortable coming into work, and, you know, that slight chance that I saw his face just made me feel so sick, and I had butterflies in my stomach. And yeah, it's not a good feeling. I feel like a lot of you know what I'm talking about, because you have messaged me about it, and it's not a good feeling. You literally feel so like, oh, I don't even know how to explain it, but you just feel like you don't want to be there. So that's when I decided to tell my parents about what had been happening. I told my dad, and my dad was quick to say, go to the police, report this has to be fixed, this is not appropriate, and you need to resolve this immediately. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't think about, you know, going to the police and, you know, talking about this, because I didn't think it was maybe a police matter yet. But I was like, look, I'm going to speak to the people at work, speak to someone, you know, higher up, senior management, and see what they have to say about this, because this definitely has to be raised, has to be reported to them, and they can't be unaware of this situation. So obviously I went to work the next day, and then I spoke to the head department, and I told her about my situation, and obviously I pretended, and my colleague was there as well. We both raised it, and we were just obviously doing it, you know, under the covers. We didn't want the other guy to know that we were obviously, you know, raising this, because he was around the office. So every time we did see him, we still said hi, bye, things like that, still smiled, and I continued, you know, about my usual activities. But I was having these conversations with the department head on the side as well. Now, she was very lovely. She was so strong, and she definitely appreciated that we had the courage to come up and talk about this. And she was like, yeah, look, this is not acceptable. This is not the values of this organization. This is definitely not something that can go ahead. And, you know, the fact that it was happening to other girls as well, it was definitely not on. After our conversation with the head department, we then were advised to talk to HR. So she had organized a meeting with HR the next day, and we obviously had that chat, my colleague and I, both together and separately as well, just to make sure that our stories did align. And again, they were very sort of understanding of the issue as well, and they said that this wasn't acceptable. The part that you guys have all been waiting for, the outcome as to what had happened. So went into work the next day, and the head department lady took me into a room, told me about the outcome of the investigation. So she said that they had all actually agreed with the investigation, all the findings, and they were ready to take immediate action. They were going to organize a chat with the facilitator. Of course, he should have the right to sort of, you know, say what he wants to say, and, you know, whether he had anything to say about the issue. So the HR division organized a chat with him, and this meeting, of course, happened straight away. I saw him going into a room, and obviously after he had his chat, he came out. I was still obviously working, and he had come out, and he just looked very distressed, very disheveled, very sort of confused, and he wasn't himself. And he went to his desk. His face was red. Did I mention his face was red? And he went to his desk. He packed up his belongings. He was taken out or escorted by some people away from, you know, to the exit. And I actually noticed him, you know, turning around, trying to sort of find, you know, my colleague and I, because I feel like, you know, he obviously knew about the situation and that we had, you know, reported him. So then the department head invited us for another conversation, and she had told us that he had actually been dismissed from his job. So he was fired. He could no longer work at the organization, and he had essentially lost his job for what he had done. I don't know if he owned up to it or not, but he lost his job. I honestly couldn't believe it. He had lost his job for something that he had done to us, which we reported, and he has now lost his job, which is a big deal. So the head department then told us, you know, my colleague and I, that we need to leave work for the day, because obviously we were all affected and we couldn't really focus on our work. So she gave us an early mark. I think we left at about lunchtime, and we were off on our merry way. She had given us a letter explaining that this would not happen ever again, and that that, you know, they were very sorry about, you know, what had happened and the fact that it happened to other girls as well. So yeah, that's it, guys. That's basically what happened in the whole scenario, whole situation. It was definitely very uncomfortable, but I'm so glad that I did that, because for my own safety, for, you know, all the other girls that were working there or potentially going to work there as well, I think this was very important, and I was very happy with how my workplace dealt with it. They were very formal, very official, and they definitely felt like we, you know, we had support and we had, you know, resources which we could reach out to. And to be honest, I stayed there in that job for another couple of months and it was fine. I essentially forgot about the whole scenario, the whole situation, and I went along as, you know, as per usual. So I just wanted to finally talk through some of the learnings that I had along the way. These are all being sort of consolidated, and I just want to share this with you and share this so that you have something that you can rely on if you are going through something, you know, of a similar sort. First learning I want to share with you is that if you have any sort of hesitation, any sort of uncomfortable feeling with anything at work in relation to harassment, then I definitely think you should speak up. You should speak up even if it's the slightest amount. I know for me, I waited a long time. I waited about, you know, 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks before anything, before I started, you know, speaking up about it, or before I started raising it. So if you notice something and, you know, it's not flying well with you, definitely report it or mention it to someone to get their opinion on it. And just remember, someone constantly complimenting you is not normal. Someone coming close to your face and talking to you is not normal. Adding you on Facebook after all of the things that had happened before is not normal. Making sexist remarks about you and your personal life is just really not on. Now, if you want to just, you know, try to sort of suss out the situation to see where it's really going, then I suggest that you make notes. You take notes, you write down things just so that you don't forget, you know, what's happened. Take notes for the different patterns that you notice, the different signs, characteristics of that person, things that you notice that are changing. I would honestly suggest speaking to the person directly if you do ever sort of, you know, have this situation. But if you were like me and you were very shy, timid, and you can't do that, then definitely speak to someone that you're comfortable with, and then they will guide you in the right direction. Otherwise, just raise it directly, escalate it to the highest person possible that you can, and raise it with them, see what they will do about it. And to be honest, if they don't do anything about it, then this could potentially be a police matter as well. So those are a few of your options, a few of the learnings that I definitely took along the way. If I was back there and I was in that role again, I would have definitely, you know, stopped it from, you know, touching me and just, you know, saying, oh, you know, I really need my personal space. I would not have let him, you know, hug me or kiss me on my forehead, you know, put his arm on my shoulder, or for him to say anything about, you know, my personal sort of life as well. I would never have added him on my Facebook in the first place to begin with, if I knew that he was that kind of person. So those are a few of the things that I wanted to just share with you. I mean, I was very naive, and I know a lot of you guys are as well. If you're especially new in the workplace and, you know, you're in your first job and you're experiencing this and you don't know what to do, I suggest speaking up. Speak to your parents if that's who you're most comfortable with, and really do something about it, because we cannot let this happen. We should not be made to feel uncomfortable going to work. We should feel safe, we should feel happy and feel like we want to go to work. If you're feeling any of those negative things, then definitely think about it, reflect, and see, you know, what is it that you can do. So guys, that is my story. I hope you guys really enjoyed it, and I hope you found it interesting, informative, and any comments that you want to make around this, do mention them down below. I will respond to all of your comments, and I know it's a very long video, I'm sorry, but this had to be shared, and I've never done one of these on my channel before, so really wanted to do this, and it was a long time coming, so I'm finally glad that I've done it. But guys, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Thanks guys.